Hey guys, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Need to call a timeout real quick here. I wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my world listeners for a while now. It's about all the incredible things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
An all-new edition of The Insiders is here. Conrad sits down with author and historian Keith Elliott Greenberg to look back on his time with the WWF during the golden era of wrestling.
I wasn't working for, the JCP magazine, or I wasn't working for Vern Gagne's magazine as, everything was imploding. I was working for Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and I was watching the company expand, and I was watching talent I've been reading about in the other wrestling magazines arrive on the scene.
Ad-Free Shows members recently chatted one-on-one with the hardcore legend himself, Mick Foley, for the first edition of Ask Mick Live.
Is there a particular place that you get the Foley flannel?
Yeah, I do. I go on Amazon and I type in Buffalo Plaid. Buffalo Plaid is the one that has the even square checks, and I order them. They run small, so I order the 5X. And I've got, if anyone's been watching Most Wanted Treasures, you'll see that I'm literally getting by an entire season with 3 long sleeve flannel shirts, a cutoff flannel shirt, and about 5 different t-shirts. And that's pretty much it, brother.
Hey, that's just a small taste of what Ad-Free Shows has waiting for you, including a brand new perk, getting to join in on the live recordings of the shows with 4 levels to choose from. See for yourself why Ad-Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adfreeshows.com. That's right. Sign up today at adfreeshows.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Conrad. I'm frustrated because I don't know anything about computers, obviously. I've been jacking around and trying to get this thing on the air for the last half hour. I'm frustrated, which may motivate me to have a hell of a show today. So, for us to have a hell of a show. Anyway, we'll get it done, and it'll be a good show about one of my favorite people in the world, one of the most controversial, compelling, unique individuals that I ever worked with, Brian Pillman. So that's what we're going to do today. And we got a hell of a week planned for myself. I'm going to Vegas here this week, and we're going to tape do Dynamite and then tape Rampage on Wednesday at the MGM Grand, and then we are doing a pay-per-view on Sunday. So it's a busy week for JR in Las Vegas, and I just got to pace myself because I have problems sometimes avoiding temptation. So we need to see if we can make this. I get out of there alive this week, so it's good. My agent Barry Bloom has let me stay at his place in the MGM Grand, so that's nice.
Oh, that's awesome! I didn't know he had a place there. That's super cool.
Yeah, he bought a place a few years ago, and I stayed there once before. It's a great place, so nice of him, and we'll make it work. We'll just make it work. So should be a busy week for AEW, quite frankly. I was always curious, Conrad, how we're going to do in the pay-per-view market this week, because we're talking so much about Wembley Stadium,
right?
Sometimes one could assume that the pay-per-view in Las Vegas is taking a back seat, but apparently ticket sales are good, and we'll check it out. It should be fun. So it should be a fun show. The card is pretty much booked. I'm concerned that a lot of the matches are kind of Wild West matches, so there's the potential to be a lot of the sameness, and that common denominator for that show seems to be, almost like a Mid-South show. It's just a lot of crazy stipulations and things of that nature. So we'll see how it works out, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'll tell you this, one thing's for sure, AEW always delivers on pay-per-view. I'm going to be watching. You should be too. As I understand it, there's still a handful of tickets on sale. Go check them out right now at AEWTIX.com. Of course, As you're listening to this, last night was probably one hell of a dynamite, the go home edition. And of course, this Friday night, you'll be able to hear the voice of wrestling on Rampage. And Saturday is the AEW Fan Fest. So if you find yourself in Las Vegas, there's something to do on Saturday. Go check out the Fan Fest. But the pay-per-view itself, Jim, let's talk about that. And then there's some other real big news we need to talk about with AEW. But this card, man, it's something else. We got Wardlow versus Christian Cage for the TNT Championship in a ladder match. Orange Cassidy is going to be putting up his international championship against the winner of the Blackjack Battle Royal, which is going to be fun because, as we know, that means anything could happen. How about Anarchy in the Arena? The Elite is back together. The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Adam Page taking on the Blackpool Combat Club. I was talking to Tony Schiavone about this one earlier in the week on his podcast, What Happened When. You take a look at this. It's just filled with Hall of Famers. John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, Hangman, the Young Bucks, and a very young and up-and-coming Wheeler Yuta. We've only seen a handful of these. As Tony reminded me, the last time we saw an Anarchy in the Arena match, Eddie Kingston brought a gas can to the ring. I can't wait to see what these guys have planned for this one. Jamie Hayter will be defending her world championship against Toni Storm. And, of course, we've got two big matches that I'm particularly interested in. FTR defending their tag team titles against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal with a very special referee in Mark Briscoe. And then in the main event, the Pillars all against each other for the AEW Gold, the big belt, if you will. Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, all getting a shot at MJF. I think this is a sleeper pay-per-view, Jim. I agree with you. I think a lot of people are talking about Wembley. They're looking past it. You and I would call this in football a trap game. This is a sleeper show. This is going to be a good one.
I think it is. I got a good feeling. I'm with you, Conrad, on that deal. It's going to have a lot of aggression, a lot of, ruthless aggression, as the old saying used to go. It's going to be good. So I'm excited about it. I don't know what my assignment's going to be. Traditionally, Tony Khan puts me in where I do, 2 or 3 matches at the beginning of the show or something. I haven't been told what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it is great. It's going to go to work. Go to work, do your job. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and it should be fun. So hopefully we'll deliver. I think we will deliver. I think you're right. We do. One thing about AEW, people can bitch about booking and administrative this, that, and the other, but we generally come through on a pay-per-view. And I think we'll do that again on Sunday night.
Well, I'm positive of it. I've never seen a bad AEW pay-per-view. One thing you can count on is a lot of wrestling, a lot of action-packed. You're going to get your money's worth. Tony Khan seemingly always over-delivers on pay-per-view. And if you're looking for great wrestling action, boy, you can almost damn overdose on it. It's happening this Sunday night, AEWTIX.com. And, of course, you can watch on pay-per-view. I'll be watching on Bleacher Report. I've got that app set up on my Apple TV, and I'm looking forward to it, man. And, we don't talk about what's happening on the other channel a lot, but it's a big weekend for wrestling fans in general. The big Saudi show is the day before. And the wrestling fan and all of us, man, we should celebrate. We got 2 big shows on a big holiday weekend, something fun for everybody. But the news that everybody's buzzing about is this brand new TV show, Jim, Collision. It's going to be in less than a month. And it was a big deal to announce that at the upfronts. And it's great, I think, for the wrestling business. Just when you see there's another 2-hour show that's going to be in prime time, it shows you how AEW is continuing to grow. And man, everybody's got an opinion about the show. What do you think? AEW Collision, be here before you know it.
I don't know a lot about this show. I don't know who's going to broadcast it. I don't know who the broadcast team is. It's just, it's all been kind of kept close to the vest, shall we say. But it's not, Saturday night's a challenging night for television. It just is. Doesn't mean people don't watch TV on Saturday. They do. And I believe that they will if there's a reason.
Yes.
So I don't know what the roster's going to look like. It was kind of cool. We kind of play along and see what happens. But I'm excited to find out who's going to be. I hope I get to broadcast that show, even though it'll kill my football on Saturday nights for a while. So we'll figure that out. That's not a big deal. That's the great thing about streaming and all those things, I can watch my ball game. I just may not be able to watch it live.
Yeah, I mean, and really, that's what it's all about. And by the way, since we've clicked record this morning, I can't believe this is real. This is a long time coming, man. The video game AEW Fight Forever will be available on June 29th, and you can pre-order right now. I know there's a lot of fans who've been looking forward to that for a long, long time. It's going to come out on Thursday, June 29th. Man, June is just going to be one heck of a month between the new show and the new video game. A lot of exciting things happening in AEW, but our topic today is talking about one of the more interesting and beloved figures in the history of professional wrestling. And wouldn't you know it, his son is actually under contract to AEW. So what a small world it is. We're actually recording today on May 22nd, and today would have been Brian's 61st birthday if he were still.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's hard to believe. It feels like I just was talking to him a day or two ago, because we talked every week seemingly, and there was never a dull moment with O'Brien. I probably should have. He had one of the most fertile and active minds in all of wrestling that I've been around. Would have been a great booker or committee guy as far as helping write TV at 61. Now, knowing Brian, he would say, "Oh, I can still work. I can still go." Nothing was going to. He knew of no barriers. He knew no boundaries, and his love for wrestling was non-paralleled, at least in my experience. I know a lot of guys that love the business, and Brian certainly fits that category. But nobody loved pro wrestling more than Brian Pillman, at least in my experience.
Well, the story of Brian early in his life is, man, it's going to build him to become this tough bastard that we got to see on TV. He's born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Unfortunately, his dad dies of a heart attack at just 50 years old. And sadly, Brian's only 3 months old. And then as a kid, Brian's going to develop throat cancer and undergo between 31 and 36 operations, the majority of those happening before he's just 3 years old. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I mean, that's a nightmare scenario, and it had to be just brutal on Brian's mom to, hey, dad's going and my son is in and out of the hospital. This is a stressful time for any young family.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But his toughness and the fortitude to pursue his dream never waned.
Yeah.
No matter what challenges he had, that raspy voice was a signature deal. And I just thought the world of him. I brought him in to WCW from Calgary, and he was highly recommended by the strength coach Kim Woods at the Cincinnati Bengals, where Brian played. There's an award that each team gives out to one of their teammates called the Ed Block Courage Award, and Brian's teammates voted him in to receive that award. So he was just, they loved his passion. He was a monster on the kickoff teams, things like that. He was a backup linebacker at about maybe 200 pounds. I know his senior year in college at Miami of Ohio, Brian was, he was a nose tackle at 6 feet, 200 pounds. And he was the second team All-American nose tackle for Miami of Ohio. And the first team All-American nose tackle that year in college was William the Refrigerator Perry.
There you go.
Who outweighed Brian about
double. Yeah. That's something I wanted to just add some context to, because I know we've got listeners across the pond who may not be familiar, but there's a lot of positions in football that are what we would call skill positions. And when people say that, they're usually talking about like quarterbacks or wide receivers or running backs. And then you've got what a lot of guys nickname the big uglies. You got the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen, and those guys are really strategic in their footwork. And I need to push this guy this way or that way. But when Jim said, man, he was a standout on the kickoff team, those guys have a reputation for being the wild cards. Those are the crazy guys. This is a particular term and one we shouldn't use nowadays, I'm sure, but They were the kamikazes. Like, I'm going to run wide open in a full sprint, 80 yards, and try to just take somebody's head off. That was Brian Pillman. And he had that tenacity on defense. And that was the point Mr. Ross was trying to display. Refrigerator Perry was sort of the common look of a defensive lineman, a nose tackle, or Mr. Ball for the Lions. These are 350-pound guys. And here's a guy who's almost half their size, who's playing at that level. So the tenacity, the intensity, the aggression, it was always there with Brian, right?
Yeah, great passion. He knew no quit. He was ruthless, fearless. I think fearless is probably one of the better ways to describe Brian.
Yes.
He was simply fearless. He always worked his ass off to find a place on the team, not unlike he did in wrestling. He had to find his role, and he had to know his role. And he was just an amazing athlete. And he was doing things that were, he loved Japanese wrestling. So he was a student of that more athleticism, taking chances, flying around, hence Flyin Brian. So it's too hard to get him a great recommendation. That was good enough for me. Then Kim Wood knew that I was a big football crazy guy, and I got all kinds of Cincinnati Bengals swag back in those days. So it was one of the great pleasures in my life to be able to work with Brian Pillman. I'm glad we're talking about him today. He deserves it.
He does sign with the Cincinnati Bengals as a free agent. You mentioned he won that Ed Block Courage Award for the team, and then later briefly played for the Canadian Football League and the Calgary Stampeders in 1986. But eventually that size thing catches up with you. And he thought, hey, if I can't really continue to pursue this football dream, I'm in Calgary. He starts Stampede Wrestling in 1986. He's training in Stu Hart's dungeon and forms a tag team with Bruce Hart, known as Bad Company. And after a few years working there in Stampede and New Japan, he joins WCW in the spring of '89. That's where he's given the name Flyin Brian, get it right. And it's written in the Observer that this signing is largely through making a contact with Jim Ross when he was brought into World Championship Wrestling in the spring of '89. How did that come to be? How do you remember first meeting Brian and getting him on the roster for WCW?
I can't remember if it was Stu's office or something that Kim Wood collected, but it was videotape. I watched the videotapes of Brian and just saw this amazingly athletic and energetic, fearless little guy who obviously had great passion and love for wrestling, looking for a break, looking for a job. But he was trained well. Stu did a great job of training these guys. Stu's sons all had a hand in helping out. And Brian was very popular because people loved his work ethic, Conrad. They admired the fact that this little guy had no fear. He wouldn't take no for an answer. And you just got to love that. He was a dream to be around in the locker room. Kept everybody on their toes, I can tell you that. But he was classic and had such a great wrestling mind. And when he and Austin got together, that was a little piece of magic that we didn't know was there. It was. And the Hollywood Blondes did a great job. And we're lucky to have them.
Tell me a little bit about when you first bring Brian on board. He is smaller. I mean, he doesn't look like the wrestler of the day. This is 1989. So we're about to make the Ultimate Warrior on the other channel. Hulk Hogan is the top guy on the other channel. These are 300-pound monsters. Brian has a totally different look. Do you remember having to sell him to Jim Herd or anybody else?
No, that place meaning WCW was so discombobulated. I don't know. People they didn't want to invest or get their hands dirty. I knew we needed new talent. I thought he could help us, and he did. And so, but I didn't have to sell anybody. It's unfortunate. Brian quickly gained everybody's favor. He quickly showed everybody how badly he wanted to be on the team, how badly he wanted to be a star and contribute in a big way. So when you get that combination, you bundle it all together. It's pretty amazing what can occur. So I was always major fan of his work ethic, and he had one speed, man. I mean, he had that kickoff coverage mentality.
Yes.
He's going to go 100. He's going to go 100%. He'll give you all he's got, and see where it goes. The first time I remember really calling a big match for him, and I don't know where we are in our format because I'm having some technical things here with that. But was he had a match at Jusha Liger?
Oh my goodness, a classic.
And that was classic, yeah. And it was different, and it was new. And he had watched Liger so much on videotape from Japan that he had that act down really well. And then consequently they had wonderful chemistry, and they presented a match that was, I want to say that match was in Milwaukee. I might be wrong, but in any event, Clash of Champions or something along those lines. But it was really an experience to see those two guys, and they stole the show. And there was a lot of top Hall of Fame like guys on that card, but Pillman and Liger. Liger's doing this, not cutting any promos.
Right.
It's just a different feel. Everything was a different feel in that particular booking. So, but we didn't know what to expect.
The match we cared about was Super Brawl 2, February of '92 in Milwaukee. They went 17 minutes, and people were talking about it like it was a classic. But here's a little fun fact for you. It almost didn't happen. Let me explain. The original idea, according to Dave Meltzer, was that Brian Pillman was going to be brought in as a heel, managed by Paulie Dangerously, who was going to put him with Dennis Condrey to create a new version of the Midnight Express. But the booker at the time, George Scott, didn't want to bring in a wrestler he'd never heard of. I love the idea of thinking about Brian Pillman working with Paul Heyman. And man, I don't think Dennis Condrey gets his flowers enough. I know a lot of people, especially FTR, consider him to be the greatest tag team wrestler of all time. He's certainly in the conversation.
Absolutely.
That could have been incredible, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, the influence that Heyman would have had on young Brian Pillman would be insurmountable. It's just a great combination. He was going to find his place again. When you're the littlest guy on the football team and you become an All-American, when you're the smallest guy on the football team and you win a very prestigious NFL award, you know that Pillman's going to find his route. Whatever that route may be, Brian's going to keep looking until he finds it. And he finds some I don't know, just comfort, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. He found what he was looking for as far as getting an opportunity to be a star. And he didn't drop the ball. He played his ass off. And again, he just was an amazing kid. Just an amazing kid. I think about him a lot, as a matter of fact. I see a lot of people send me videos on Twitter at JRSBBQ, which I appreciate. I just never saw Brian have a bad match. You know, he always gave you extra. And that's what you look for in talent. That's willing to go out and give you extra, even though they may not be going over. It's the old deal. It's not exactly who goes over, it's who gets over. And Brian got over.
He did get over, and he gets over when he comes in as a baby face with a bunch of music videos to sort of hype his entrance. And this all happens after Mr. Scott is let go. As you may recall, there was that whole debacle where he booked the Superdome with Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat on top to go head to head with WrestleMania, and then thought, well, let's just promote it on TV and not worry about trying to sell tickets. That was a bad call. Mr. Scott was shooting the door. And that created an opportunity for Brian Pillman to come in as a babyface. And Dave would write in the Observer that he was he was getting a bit of a reputation for being more inexperienced and more quote unquote green than he really was. But that was just butterflies. And once they wore off and he found that comfort you were alluding to, people started to say, man, this guy's improving at an amazing rate. So all of a sudden, you know, it feels like it was stop and start, and then he's off to the races. And I think a lot of people probably take a look at a guy his size and think, hey, maybe this is our next Ricky Morton type guy, because a few years prior to this, Ricky Morton had a reputation for being one of the best in the business and quite a draw.
Yeah. Brian just kept looking for his path. And then he was provided some amazing opportunities that he took advantage of. There's one thing about getting an opportunity. The other thing is taking advantage of it and making it work for you. And Brian made it work for him. The George Scott thing. I don't want to use somebody I don't know. Well, you should know these guys,
Right.
you get to know them. Trust me a little bit. That hey, nobody else in our booking committee's doing a hell of a lot to bring in new talent. And if you don't have a continual flow of new talent coming into your company, you're screwing yourself. Wrestling fans like new. They like surprises, and they accepted Brian like he was one of our own, and he was, quite frankly. But when he first got there, he had to tread lightly a little bit. Brian could be abrasive. He could be very confident, and he had a high. He had a very high desire to deliver the goods. And he always did. And that's one of the reasons, Conrad, that I like to recruit people from team sports. They're used to structure.
Yes.
They're pushing themselves. And so that was where I put Brian in that spot, that he was going to be, he's going to be self-motivated. Oh, but ball players don't want to play on a second team. Ball players want to be in the best shape. They want to be the most aggressive. They want to be the most entertaining. They want to be good. And Brian wanted all those things. But sometimes along the way, you can step on a few toes of the incumbents who are doing the same moveset, the same, sequencing that they've always done. Nothing new. And with Brian, you always found him bringing something new to the equation. And that's one of the great things I loved about it. He kept refreshing his game.
Well, he makes his big debut, his first big match with the promotion here at Halloween Havoc in 1989. And he's going to have one of the best matches on the card that night against Lex Luger. And Lex Luger, while he looked like $1 million, didn't always have a reputation for having the best match. That magic little extra ingredient to this formula is Brian Pillman. And that's going to really become something that he's pretty consistently known for, great matches. And when I think of consistency, I think of our friends at Factor. JR and I have been enjoying Factor for a few months now, and we think it's time you give it a shot. They're America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Maybe you're too busy to cook. Well, with Factor, man, you can skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, the prepping, and the cleaning up too. What I enjoy are Factor's fresh, never frozen meals, and then I can get them ready in just 2 minutes. All you got to do is heat and enjoy, and then it's back to enjoying the weather or whatever else you got on your honey-do list this time of year. And this is something that everybody can enjoy. They've got a lot of different menu items, and I mean a lot. We all get in a rut with our diet sometimes. Well, how about 34 different chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options? They've even got over 4 dozen add-ons. I'm talking all your breakfast stuff too, like apple cinnamon pancakes and bacon and cheddar egg bites, but your snacks too. You need some juices or shakes or smoothies. They got you hooked up there too. What I enjoy most though is the flexibility. My wife is trying to do some calorie smart meals. That means every time she has her Factor meals, they're 550 calories or less. I'm rocking a little keto action myself. They can do that for you too. They've even got a vegan option. And how about for a guy like Jeff Jarrett, you can try Protein Plus. There's 30 extra grams of protein in those. Something for everybody. Not only is this cheaper than takeout, because it will save you money, it's also faster and it's better for you. It's got everything you want in it and nothing that you don't want in it because of these dietitians who are monitoring it. But how do you beat 2 minutes? 2 minutes unbeaten. Like, you can't do that with takeout.
Nope.
This May, get Factor. Enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Just simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/JR50. Use that code JR50 to get 50% off your first box. And Jim, this has got to be convenient. You and I, we like to eat, but I don't really like to shop. I don't really like to prep. And when I find myself when I shop, I buy too much. It's more than what I really need. I wind up throwing it out. This is not only better for me, it's cheaper for me. and it's ready faster. Checks all my boxes, Jim.
Every box gets checked. Quality food, great taste. I love the variety, and I love the fact that I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Yeah.
When I got other things to do, like sit on my patio and look at the beach and see all the nice folks that are enjoying the beach today. So it's a great thing. It's another one of those great ideas, Conrad, where you and I would say, as entrepreneurs that we are, why the hell did we think of that? It's awesome. It's an awesome thing, and it's good. It tastes good. Everything that you would question about this sort of product, those questions have been answered more times over. So give it a shot. You're not gonna be out a lot of money. You're gonna have great health. You're gonna eat the right thing. And like Conrad said, I'm dangerous. If I go to the grocery store hungry, I'm screwed. Because I'll inadvertently walk down the cookie aisle or something. I don't need that, Conrad. So it's a great product. Another one of our great sponsors that treat us right, more importantly, treat our listeners right. So give it a shot, folks. Try to order and see if we're not telling you the truth. You'll be very pleasantly surprised.
You're going to absolutely love it, man. I can't recommend it enough. One more time, head to factormeals.com/JR50. Use that code JR50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code JR50 at factormeals.com/JR50, and you'll get 50% off your first box. Let's jump back into it here, man. We're talking about Brian Pillman. He's being mostly presented here in late 89 as a mid-card babyface. He's one of the best workers in the company. And then we tried something new with him in early 1990. In February, he and Tom Zink are going to win the U.S. Tag Team titles. And this is as old as wrestling is. A good-looking white meat babyface, these heartthrob, pretty boy babyface tag teams. This is a callback to the territory days, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. They're the Rock and Roll Express type thing. They're just reinvented in a more modern version. But yeah, it was Brian was the star of that team. And sometimes I think Tom Zink kind of realized that Brian was the catalyst of that group, that duo. And so sometimes I felt like he could be better. He's a good looking kid, smart, athletic, but he needed the stars to shine on him more than maybe he should have. And that people said, well, how could he be shine more? Well, he was uncomfortable with where his role in that team was. Pillman was the star. Hey, I called hundreds of Rock and Roll Express matches. Big time scenarios, big main events, just great stuff. But man, there was never any doubt who the star of the Rock and Roll Express was. Ricky Morton.
Right.
Robert Gibson was a perfect complement. And Robert was a hell of a hand. He probably still is a better worker than a lot of guys at his age. But I love the potential of that team. But like Ricky Morton was to the Rock and Roll Express, Brian Pillman was to his team with Tom Zink, in my opinion.
It's also reported that Brian Pillman is becoming almost like the personal protege of Ric Flair. And they even had a famous match on Saturday night that drew the largest audience ever to watch that program. That went down on February 17th, 1990. And that to me is that's a telltale sign. You have an audience that has connected with this talent. Like we as the hardcore wrestling fans, and I'll just call it like it is, wrestling nerds, we want to see great matches, and we're going to see a great match with Brian Pillman and Ric Flair. That's a given. But the casual fans, they liked it. I got to tell you, as a kid, I loved that, he was doing the high flying moves. I loved his Cincinnati Bengals type tights. I just liked the character. And I wasn't a Ric Flair fan when I was a little kid, but I was darn sure a Flyin Brian fan. And the idea that you have this, well, he's a little undersized, well, all the negative stuff. And when he draws the biggest rating, that has to hush a lot of those naysayers.
Yeah, it's a win. That's a big win. I don't even know. I'm assuming Flair went over in the match. I don't remember. But it's that rating was a win.
Yes.
And it wasn't like we're fronting those numbers every week. We weren't. So they finally found something that the audience wanted to see. Nate's was hot. Remember in '89, that might have been Ric Flair's
Best year
ever.
Yeah.
He had those three matches with Steamboat. He had the match or two with Terry Funk. I mean, '89 was a banner year for the Nate. And then Pillman got to ride that wave. And he took advantage of it. He just didn't go out and have a match. He went out and had a great match. And I think that also motivated Rick to step his game up as well, so that he could show everybody, hey, look, I'm a little older than this young kid, but I can still go. And boy, he was right. He could still go. And he did in that match for sure.
Go out of your way to see it. It was actually recorded on February 15th, 1990. They go 11 minutes and 43 seconds. It's taped for television at the Georgia Mountain Center in Gainesville, Georgia. Ric Flair does get the dub, but as they say in wrestling, a lot of times it's not who goes over, but who gets over. Brian Pillman got over that night in a big way. Go out of your way to see it. And it's interesting because it feels like he's got this opportunity with Tom Zink for the U.S. tag straps. And then he's got an opportunity to show what he can do in a singles match with Ric Flair, but the machine won't get behind him. I actually try something new. He loses a loser leaves town match to Barry Windham, and he tries something that you and I love. I loved it when Dusty did it and he became the Midnight Rider. You loved it when I'm sure you saw JYD become Stagger Lee. Brian's become the Yellow Dog. Yellow Dog. And do you think that could have worked in 1990, or was that too old school at that point? Maybe.
I don't think anything's too old school, Conrad. Quite honestly, it's all a matter of execution.
Yes.
To be honest with you, that's like if we just go on size. Look at how many guys in all the major promotions around the world are under 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
If we stopped and did a survey, we'd probably be kind of surprised at how many talents we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that size is not the be all end all. Skill and passion is the be all end all. And Brian Pillman checked both those boxes very vividly.
Let's talk about, the next big thing that's going to happen for Brian Pillman here is the Jushin Liger opportunity. These matches start in late 91. They come through early 92, but there's a Christmas week house show loop. And then you wind up with a match of the year candidate at Super Brawl in Milwaukee. And I think you could take a look at that in early 92. As we said, Super Brawl 2 was February in Milwaukee. That feels like, I'm not going to say it's the precursor for the cruiserweight division, but it feels like it's ushering in a new style. What we have seen by and large have been these big, thick, lumbering men. On the other channel, we're seeing guys like One Man Gang and King Kong Bundy and Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And here, man, something totally different. And you could say certainly that Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid were doing it before, but this is happening on U.S. television and in a big way on a pay-per-view. And when people start talking about this is the best match on the card, that's great for Brian Pillman, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. He got to play. He got in the game. He got in the game when it was a meaningful game, not when it's out of reach. He got in the game when the game was still undecided, and he carried the ball and he did great. I mean, he just was, he took advantage of every opportunity. It's like a football player finally getting a chance to get on the field. He got on the field, he got in the game, and he took advantage of it. And that's what more talents need to realize today. It's like this weekend, in Vegas. I hope those kids realize what an opportunity they have to raise their game and the perception of their game and these big high profile pay-per-views like the AEW produces and will produce again on Sunday.
It's also a match that's going to catch the attention of Kip Fry, and that's what really matters. On the heels of this Super Brawl opportunity with Jushin Liger, he gets a $225,000 contract over the next 3 years. And that deal at the time was considered big money. Let's remember, this is a company that is losing money every single year. They've yet to turn a profit. So they're trying to cut costs and mitigate costs where they can and mine those dollars and cents. And now here's a guy who doesn't look like Hulk Hogan or Lex Luger, and we're giving him, I mean, now listen, 225 is good money today. 225 30 years ago, an incredible deal for Brian Pillman here.
Yeah, where you want to keep him happy, keep him there, hence the 3-year commitment that the company was making to Brian at the $225,000 mark. Look, he'd earned it. We wanted him to stay. It was just trying to fit into the marketplace for the right number. We found the number that he liked, and so that's what we signed into. Kip Fry was very ingenious in some areas, more on the business side of doing contracts, things like that, than he was about, booking an angle or booking a match or something. That was just not his forte. But he was very good at motivating talents, to be honest with you. And what motivates talents, Conrad? Cash and creative. So Brian got the cash. He got the cash that he was looking for, and he was getting creative opportunities that he had been waiting on his entire life.
And I wish I had a record scratch sound effect, because then Bill Watts comes on board, and it's been said that he was in charge of trying to, we got to right size the books, boys and girls. We got to run a P&L. We got to get rid of this red ink. We got to find the black ink. And unfortunately, this brand new contract that Brian Pillman had for $225,000, a lot of people felt like that became a bullseye. And you're really tight with the Cowboy. I know you think a lot of Brian. What do you remember of this? Because it's been said that, well, let me just say, or read you what Dave wrote. After a short period of being jobbed in the opener nearly every night, despite being amongst the hottest workers at the time, with lots of internal pressure on him to cave into Watts, he stood firm, claiming he was going to become the highest paid jobber in opening match pro wrestling history, until the situation of his jobbing and the reasons for it became an embarrassment for the company, and both sides settled their problems in a solution that was largely face-saving for both sides. In the wake of all the problems, Watts decided to drop the light heavyweight division. So just to recap, we have a match of the year candidate that everybody loves. We decide we're going to spend more time on this. We created largely this division for these two guys. We signed this talent to a really big contract. There's a change of leadership. And as this happens a lot in sports, when the new ball coach comes in, he wants his people, he wants to pick his groceries. And also too, we're hemorrhaging cash. And that's Watts' priority is we got to right the ship. We need to be a profitable business. Brian Pillman was not willing to let that money go. And this has become a famous story. I'll be the highest paid jobber in history. What do you remember of this?
Oh yeah. He talked about that. He was trying to protect his money, and he was at a number that he liked. Look, Brian had a lot of obligations. Bad marriage, several kids. He just had a hell of an agenda, personal agenda that he had to maintain and take care of. So I was never against Brian. I was always against the junior heavyweight light. There's never been a great junior heavyweight since Danny Hodge got out of business. Hodge was the best because he was an Olympian, 3-time national champion. He never lost in college. Every bit of publicity that you want as a PR guy, Hodge provided. But there was no way to follow that act. And so having a junior heavyweight title or a cruiserweight title, I hated all those damn things. I hated all those, because it brought you down a notch, I think. And I remember talking to Bill about that a lot. I said, it's just not going to work. These odds are over. And, people want to see athleticism. They want to see movement. They want to see explosiveness. And Brian had all those things. Cowboy just lived in the past, but bless his heart, that, he probably had never paid anybody, including Junkyard Dog, a guaranteed $225,000 in Cowboy's career. So he was, but he wasn't serving those two masters. He was serving his own conscience. He thought the kid was getting overpaid. But, the way I did that, let it go.
Right.
$225,000. They're going to go to big link on the test budget. So, and go pick out one of your brightest, youngest stars and single him or her out. And it's bad decision. And I love Bill Watts. He had a birthday here a while back, just a couple of weeks ago. He's in his 80s. God bless, he's still alive, blowing and going. Talk to him every now and then. And it's always fun to talk to him. And, he's still got his opinions.
Yeah.
And some of those old guys, you're just not going to change their opinion. But I think that's what helped me maintain my longevity, is I've always been willing to change and to listen to other people's compromises. But Cowboy didn't have that patience. I didn't learn my patience from Cowboy. So, but Brian you just don't go single out a kid like Brian Pillman, who's going to be one of your top stars. Hey, as far as I was concerned, Brian Pillman could have been the champion.
Right.
I really believe that. And, but he just Cowboy picked the wrong hill to die on that deal, I think. And Brian was defiant and very confident. So he followed a path that only he really wanted to walk. And he is ballsy enough to speak up. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not. I used to say this to our talent in WWE back in the day. I got to talk to Vince. They're all swelled up. And I said, well, if you're going to talk to the old man, you better figure out conversing, not confronting, because it ain't going to work for you. You're going to be out the door. Well, I don't care. I'm going to, okay. You know what you're doing. Don't take my advice. What the hell would I know? So you do whatever you think you need to do. And I'd always give Vince a heads up. Hey, you're going to have so-and-so's going to want to visit. And he's upset. And they're always upset about one of the same two things, Connie. We talked about this.
Creative. Yeah.
That's it, buddy.
Yeah.
So, I was probably more pro Pillman, as much pro Pillman. Austin was another guy that I, saw specialness in. But he was bigger. Brian still got painted with that damn small guy brush.
Right.
And that just really wasn't fair based on his skill set.
Well, before both you and Bill exit the company, the Hollywood Blondes become a thing, and man, it's just magic. Brian Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin. Stone Cold wrote in his book, when we came up with the Hollywood Blondes idea, I think Raven came up with our name first. JR told me in the early 70s there was another Hollywood Blondes tag team consisting of a veteran wrestler named Jerry Brown, who'd once swore he'd shoot Cowboy Bill Watts, and Buddy Roberts, who was to become known as one of the members of the Fabulous Freebirds. Those guys had some good heat going with the fans, and JR thought we were a good update on that concept. I love that he sort of gives you credit for the idea. That's fantastic.
Well, that was my job, Connie. You just, you see something, speak up. Don't keep it a secret. I thought there's some magic with those two guys. I really did. My exit, I left there in early 93.
Yes.
Went to WWE, and I called WrestleMania 9. God, it's hard to believe that I was on a show, WrestleMania 9, and now I don't know what number they're up to, 30-something, but it's crazy, man. So
later, man, they just did 39. You just passed 30 years from that.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
So it's but I thought, boy, those guys are magic. The key there is getting the office, the final decision makers, in this case Watts, to tag into a tag team and make a tag team stars. Whereas a lot of bookers like to have that one star. Flair had partners. He had the Horsemen, but Nash was always a star when he was by himself.
Right.
Too. And so we'll see how that would end up working out. But I love that little tag team with Austin and Pillman. They just are exciting. They're creative. They didn't do a lot of replicated moves. They just were it. And there's just no telling if things that worked out differently, how far they would have gone as a tag team. I think they would have revolutionized the tag team scene and would have become one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
We should mention that as you're leaving WCW for the WWF, the Blondes are going to win the tag straps from Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas in Macon, Georgia. and they had some phenomenal matches. You weren't there for most of those, but business really goes into the toilet during that summer. Flair signed back in the WCW after leaving the WWF, and they put together a feud with Pillman and Austin being the young, obnoxious heels against the veterans Flair and Arn. And that's going to build up to Flair's first match back in WCW. It's a Clash of the Champions. And as a reminder, when Flair first jumps back to WCW, he's doing like a talk show segment called The Flair for the Gold. Well, Brian and Steve have a little fun and do a parody of it called A Flair for the Old. And the actual Clash show happens, it gets a 2.6 rating, which unfortunately is the lowest Clash rating in history. And the committee, as it was, decided, well, it can't be Flair and Arn's fault. Pillman and Austin, they must be a failure as a team. They break them up. And now Brian Pillman is put back in a babyface role without any push. I mean, listen, we don't talk about it a lot here on the show, but business was down in 93, not just here in WCW, but in the WWF, everybody was on the way down. And they say a lot of times that wrestling is cyclical. Do you believe that wrestling is cyclical?
Yeah, I do. And I also believe that high tide raises all ships.
Yes,
I really do. So, I base my opinion of that on the fact that when McMahon went national and started creating WrestleManias, that amazing concept, that the Mid-South business improved because people became more aware of pro wrestling. They're seeing pro wrestling mentioned in places that the average fan was not attuned to. So it raises everybody. Business goes up when one promotion is raising that tide. But yeah, it's just the Flair Arn thing. Look, I'm not blaming Flair or Arn for anything.
No,
but the problem is that we didn't have what they wanted to see apparently because the ratings were indicated such. So I don't know, man. I think that I think that everybody should share in the blame, from the announcers to everybody involved in the production of that match should take ownership of where they may have dropped the ball. I can't narrow it down to two guys. I just don't think that's fair. So again, Brian got kind of got a raw deal there, and Austin stayed stayed upright, but he was so fucking good. It's not even funny. Even then, at least that's my take on him. He was a natural, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise, Conrad, that Steve got some notoriety in the Dangerous Alliance, but his run with Brian was cut short prematurely, immensely prematurely, and it's too bad. I would love to have been different, and we could see just exactly how far those two guys, Brian and Steve, would have gone as a tag team. I just think they were like, I thought they could be like the Midnight Express or something. I thought they could be a great main event level tag team, but that was not the consensus within all the decision makers. And that happens a lot, Connie, when you've got wrestlers in charge or involved in the booking. It's not objective. It's good old boy network, except for buddy out, all that stuff. We've got to protect this guy, we've got to protect that guy. It's just not healthy. It's not healthy. It wasn't healthy then, and it's sure as hell not healthy now, and it still exists in pro wrestling.
Well, I'll tell you something that is healthy, and that's getting a great shave, and that's objective. Well, I'm talking about the best shave that Jim and I have ever had is from a Henson razor. Henson Shaving is a company that JR and I believe in. They're a family-owned business, and we love that. But this wasn't the original plan. You see, these cats are an aerospace parts manufacturer. Don't take my word for it. Check it out. They made stuff for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and now they're using those aerospace grade CNC machines to cut razors that are just 0.0013 inches. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, how thick is that? Well, it's less than the thickness of a human hair. And what that means for you and I is a secure and stable blade to a vibration-free shave. And it gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, and that's going to make clogging virtually impossible. What I like best about this product is they set out to make the best razor, not the best razor business. You see, there's no gimmicky subscriptions. There's nothing plastic about it. There's no proprietary blades. There's no planned obsolescence. You see, Henson works with a standard old school dual edge blade, just like every professional wrestler is familiar with, just like your grandfather used to use, except with new school tech. Pop never had a razor that was thinner than the thickness of a human hair. But not only is it better, Jim, it's also cheaper. And normally that's a trade-off. When something is better, it costs more. We all kind of understand that. But once you own a Henson razor, because I think this is the last one you'll ever need, it's only $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades. Not $3 to $5 a package or a month or a quarter or a week or a shave. $3 to $5 a year. Let's say no to subscriptions. Let's say yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Visit HensonShaving.com/JR to pick the razor for you and use the code JR and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just be sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to HensonShaving.com/JR and use the promo code JR. Jim, this Henson razor is the real deal, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's a real deal. It's they developed an amazing product at the folks at Henson. And if you're like me, I hate shaving. I really do. But it's fait accompli. I also don't want to walk out there on TV with a bunch of white whiskers like these. So, but yeah, they really good company. They make a great product, and they're more into in my view, Henson's more into the development of a great shaving device than they are a great shaving system. Like Conrad said, it's not, you don't have to subscribe. It's not all that bullshit. Straightforward, great razor, and you damn sure can't complain about the price. It's a great price for the best razor in the world. Simply said, that's the bottom line.
You're going to love it. Check it out. HensonShaving.com/JR. Be sure to use that promo code JR. Let's talk about what's next for Brian. He is going to suffer a pretty serious back injury, and he's going to be down a little bit and off the road. He'll bounce around some various spots in WCW, but then he has the first ever match on Monday Nitro. So that's a nice little trivia note. And who else would be his opponent other than Jushin Liger? But before long, he joins a legendary stable in the Four Horsemen. And somehow, someway, that character evolves into what we're going to be calling the loose cannon. And Bischoff wrote in his book that Brian could be a very dark person to be around, depending on where his head was at, but he could also be a lot of fun. He had a great mind for the business. A lot of guys have a good imagination and can come up with ideas for how their characters can be used, but only a select few can do that for other characters. And Brian had that ability. He could look at other people and come up with ideas to enhance their character. Brian came up with an idea for an angle where he could portray a character who might do just about anything at any moment, a character totally unpredictable, on the verge of snapping at any given moment, who might just be a little crazy. I really like the whole loose cannon thing. It went directly to the philosophy of doing things differently and continually surprising the viewer. Is that a fair description, you think, of Brian, that he could be creative for other people?
Absolutely. That's an art. It's something you don't find very often. But that's Eric's depiction of Brian Pillman's spot on.
This is going to lend itself to some interesting moments. This loose cannon character, there was that circumstance with Bobby Heenan on live TV where he goes after the jacket and Bobby didn't know and curses, and then he tells Kevin Sullivan, "I respect you, Booker man," and he wrestles a pencil on ECW TV. He even threatened to pull his ween out and pee in the middle of the ring on ECW TV and attacked a fan, and just really over the top, silly, fun stuff. Did you see much of this loose cannon stuff in WCW or ECW, and what did you think?
Well, he and I would chat about what he was going to do. I think I was a sounding board for Brian because he knew he could trust me. He knew I didn't want this job. But we would chat about it and laugh about some of those things. I don't know where we are on our notes, but, you have this idea to upset to steal a show at the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
he was going to chain himself to the goalpost and catalog himself. And there's going to be a stunt, publicity stunt, obviously. So that was one of the things he wanted to do. And that was at the Super Bowl. I remember running into Brian. I think Vince and I were together at a television convention, maybe NAPI or something like that. Brian snuck in, got in the building, and he was just going crazy. He was in character, and he'd go over and hug me, but he stayed in character. He whispered in my ear, "You know this is a work, right?" So I kind of give it a little squeeze. Yep, I got it. But he went up to Vince. "Vincing man, you motherfucker, it's me, Brian." All this stuff. So he had balls, man. Vince didn't know that was coming. Vince asked me, he said, "Is he working us or what's he doing?" I said, "He's looking for work." And he's trying to create an awareness of his character and who he is. And Vince thought that was kind of ballsy. And it's hard to not like Brian.
Right.
It really was, Conrad. It was hard to not like him because of that amazing passion that and man, you don't want to. It's like somebody told me managing talent was like managing a horses, in that you got to let them run. You can't not let them run. That's what they're born and bred to do. And you try to put a bit in their mouth and restrain them. You're retarding their growth and their productivity. And there's a lot to be said about that philosophy. I believe it to be true. You get an explosive athlete. You get a running back run a 4.3. What are you going to do? I'm going to give him the ball. That's one idea. That's where you start. Well, we just give you the ball more. See if you can't break some of these 4.3 time touchdowns. So Brian did a lot of things. We passed one of the funniest things Brian ever did. We were in Columbus, Georgia. They had 2 stalls in the men's locker room. And he comes running to me. "You got to see this. You got to see this." "What, Brian? What is it?" "No, come on, come with me." So he took me into the men's dressing room. I can't remember. I was trying to think about this. Who was left to be the guard, the sergeant at arms to guard the turd, and some other boys underneath guy, preliminary guy. So I went back. This guy was standing guard on the outside the stall, and Brian it's like a Broadway theatrical performance. He slowly opened the door, and Conrad, I swear to God, I have never seen a human being. I've seen animals have taken big shits. I never seen a human being that took a shit like Brian Pillman. I swear to you, this is no exaggeration. It had to be 2 feet long. And to get it out of your body without breaking it, which is Brian's goal, I would think be kind of challenging. But that was the top of the TV that week, was Pillman's turd. And he looked at that like he had won the NWA title. He was so happy. He got everybody talking in a very unique way. So he never quit looking for ways to sensationalize Flyin Brian. And that was certainly one way I did it. And that story got around. It was around forever. I don't know how many other guys saw it, but I saw it. It's embedded in my memory. I didn't get down and do a forensic study, but the 2-foot turd is pretty impressive. That's good old boy stuff.
No doubt. No doubt. I was hoping we'd get that story. Tell me a little bit about how you heard Brian Pillman got his release from WCW, and it was supposed to be a quote unquote work. And the idea is we're trying to make it real. And boy, now it's really real. Brian finds himself negotiating with WCW and the World Wrestling Federation. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do you find out this is a real opportunity, and what did you think of the way it all went down?
Well, when Brian got released from WCW, there weren't a lot of options. he could go to at pro wrestling to make a good living. WWE being the top candidate. So, and Vince had remembered Brian from Brian's interruption or intervention or whatever you want to call it at that NAPI convention.
Right.
Where Brian was talking loud and MF and this, MF and that, and all that. And Vince kind of thought that's cool. Brian had balls. And it wasn't intimidated to play his cards. And so, I helped negotiate that deal with Brian. And it really wasn't hard to negotiate. He kind of knew where his number was, the range. So he had another chance there to get back in the game. And Vince is going to give him a good shot at getting over and contributing as a main event level guy. And that was all great, well and good until he had a Hummer accident. And that didn't help the cause for anybody. God bless him. He said, I felt so bad for him because that was a serious piece of business. Serious piece of business. So anyway, he couldn't catch a break on it. And that added to his consternation, that added to his angst and stress. So I just wish that several times that we talked about this here today, that we could have had a healthy Brian for an extended length of time, so we could have really seen what he was like, healthy, athletic, and healthy. But when you fuse your ankle and you're limping, and it just wasn't meant to be. Just wasn't meant to be. And to offer him another role, another job, to Brian was insulting. He thought he could work through any pain, through any scenario, and be a he never lost his confidence, at least at that point he had not. But he was also becoming more dependent on pain medicines and stuff, because to try to get around, and just to walk with a fused ankle and all the damage that wreck had done was really daunting. I mean, it was like, well, this is not supposed to be happening. So, but he kept fighting. That's what was amazing about him. He just kept fighting and wouldn't say, I quit. Okay, I'm tapping. I can't do it. Let's figure out something else. Because I thought I wanted to make him my regular broadcast partner. I thought he could be like another Jesse the Body type guy in the ring, controversial. So that's what he wants. That's what he pleases, et cetera, et cetera. So, when I suggested that, unless I was going to try to help him or everything, he got angry because the writing was on the wall. People just didn't believe that he's going to get healthy enough to be able to pull this thing off in the ring. So he's a good talker. He's got a distinctive voice. He understands, he has product knowledge. He's clever, quick-witted. So why not? Why not was he wasn't wrestling. And if he's not wrestling, Brian Pillman's not happy.
Well, it's a landmark deal that he's going to get. And the way he gets this deal is pretty incredible. As a reminder, he quote unquote worked Eric Bischoff into giving him a release to double down on this loose cannon persona. It's a real release sent from Turner Legal. So he uses that to create leverage and a bit of a bidding war. Bischoff had sort of lowballed him here, maybe being a little irritated with this. And eventually McMahon offers a guaranteed deal, which Dave would say is either only the third or fourth time in history he's ever offered a guaranteed deal. And he speculates it's going to be in the $400,000 range. So now Brian is in the catbird seat. But as you alluded to, he purchases a Humvee, not like a relaunch of the Hummer from the late 90s or early 2000s, whatever it was, but the real deal military style Hummer. And somehow, some way, he falls asleep at the wheel on April 15th, goes off the road. He's going to be thrown 40 feet into a field, and he's going to be lying there in a pool of his own blood. And this is so brutal that friends who visit him in the hospital don't even recognize him because he's so bloody and swollen. And eventually they have surgery, taking bones from his hip to reconstruct his ankle. He gets released from the hospital. And at this point, it's all up in the air. He is not signed yet. And when the actual signing happens, I remember seeing the press conference, and you guys didn't do these sort of things all the time like this in the WWF. You could tell Brian was hurt at the presser. Like it wasn't something he was hiding, but clearly McMahon thought, man, with this Monday Night War heating up the way it is, and all these guys leaving here to jump there, whether it's Hogan or Savage or Hall and Nash, I need somebody coming back this way. Brian Pillman's the guy. You make a big to-do about it, but there's still a concern of when, and maybe even if, he'll ever be able to wrestle again, right?
That's right. That had to be on the consideration list. Quite frankly, based on his injury, Conrad, it was a long shot that he would ever wrestle again. Mm. But we felt like as a personality, as a talent, that he had value.
Yes.
He was that creative and that charismatic and all that stuff. Now, as far as Brian was concerned, Brian was just simply waiting until he could get cleared, so to speak, to wrestle again and try to pull off that Kerry Von Erich thing with the prosthetic. Kerry had that prosthetic foot. I don't remember when I had to have a prosthetic, but his ankle was fused. It's locked in place. And so there went one of his calling cards, just athleticism, was just hard to manage because of the injury. What he put up with, what he endured to get to his dream, his goal, was hard to explain. It's heartwarming in a way. It's heartbreaking in another. And it's just a sad, sad story that didn't have a happy ending.
It is a sad story. It's a good story at first. You know, he's able to secure this big deal from Vince. The reason he signs with the WWF is, I guess, the WCW contracts at the time had a 90-day termination clause where if you weren't able to return, they could let you go. Bischoff wasn't willing to remove it, so Pillman jumps. He's now officially a part of the WWF. And, you know, we're trying to promote him. I mean, even at the presser, the dude's on crutches. And a few months later, we get the unfortunate news that the ankle is not healing properly. And sadly, the doctors have to re-break the ankle and do yet another reconstructive surgery. And they're going to fuse his ankle into a walking position. Listen, we've talked a lot about cash and creative, but I'm curious from Vince's standpoint, he's got to be getting frustrated with this. Like, man, did I get sold a bill of goods? Is this ever going to work? Am I ever going to get a return on my investment? Was Vince frustrated with this?
Well, I think he was anxious to see if it was going to work. I don't know, frustration. At this point, frustration might be a little heavy.
Okay.
But it was, Vince, meaning he, was going in that direction. Frustration. Is this going to work? I bet on this kid, and now is this going to pan out or not? It doesn't look like it's going to pan out. So, but the more you talk about it, the more Brian tried to make it happen, make it work. So he was going through a lot of pain just to get around. And it's just, it was so sad. He wasn't the same person because his lifelong dreams. He'd always been one of the best athletes on the field, no matter what field it was on. That luck ran out, man. That fused ankle just was the kiss of death in a lot of ways. And it defined him in the eyes of many, which is unfortunate. My point of saying this, Conrad, is that Brian Pillman, with his intellect and his aptitude for the pro wrestling business, could have been a great star. And you don't have to be a wrestler to be a great star in pro wrestling. You could be a broadcaster. You could be a manager. There's a lot of things he could do. He could help in writing TV because of his creativity. So it was just hard to see that vibrant, athletic, devil may care, face every challenge head on to where he just couldn't do it. But he didn't want anybody to know that he couldn't do it. And I think that's kind of where we were. It was you always wondered, when you saw Brian on TV, is he able to go or not? And how much longer can he go? And I think he realized time was running out on him. I remember one time we were in, I think that we were in a house show. Seemed like Seattle or Portland. I was in Connecticut. And I was on the phone with Jack Lanza, who was our lead agent, to go over the lineup, order of events, finishes, all those things that we did. And he calls me back at about, I guess all the talent had not arrived yet. So Jack called me back and said, Dylan's all screwed up today. Or, what do you mean he's all screwed up? I said, so you're saying that you think he has over-medicated himself? Yes. I said, do you believe that he's safe to go have a match? No. I said, don't put him in a match. Can't do it. If we get sued, we got no leg to stand on. We knew he was impaired, and we put him out there anyway. So he ain't gonna wrestle tonight.
Man.
And then I'm gonna have a drug guy there, so Brian could pee in the bottle. And then my phone rang again. And this time it was Brian called. He thought I betrayed him. I can't believe you do this to him after all we've been through. You're like my big brother, blah, blah, blah. And that hurt my feelings. It made me feel even sadder for his situation. I was never mad at him. He had drug and alcohol issues. He's just trying to mask his freaking pain, Conrad. That's all. And he went like a lot of guys. He went a little overboard on his medications. So, but he was pissed at me for a few days after that deal. I don't know what he's going to do about it. We had to figure out what's going on, and he flunked the drug test. Wow, that's a revelation. So he flunked the drug test, and that started another trait that we had to travel. It wasn't pleasant.
It's unfortunate that that was your experience with Brian. His ankle injuries obviously wound up getting the better of him, and we at least find a way to turn it into a storyline. I suppose if you know you're going to have a surgery here in late 96, might as well turn it into a storyline. I'll never forget at King of the Ring 96, when Pillman is walking to the back down the aisle and Austin is on his way to the ring, they just exchange a glance that's, I mean, if you weren't paying attention, you'd miss it. But we know, as longtime wrestling fans who watched all wrestling, and those guys were tag team partners on the other show, and they just sort of just looked at each other, and it's an acknowledgement. That's in June of 96. Fast forward, and I believe it's in October of 96. We're getting ready for Stone Cold Steve Austin to take on the returning Bret Hart at Survivor Series, and month after month, week after week, Austin's been calling him out. And when it feels like Pillman might be a Bret sympathizer or a Bret Hart fan, that's enough. That's an insult for Austin. He destroys Pillman's ankle in storyline in a folding chair, and they even referred to it as a verb. He's going to Pillmanize his ankle rather. And this is well done. I mean, it was a Superstars angle, so it's done on the weekend. It's not on Monday Night Raw, but I remember it being really cool, and we know what it's going to lead to. Unfortunately, a rather controversial moment that even predates the Attitude Era. You never thought you'd see it, but finally we saw a gun in the World Wrestling Federation. Once he has surgery to repair the ankle that was quote unquote explained with the Austin attack, really didn't have anything to do with it. Austin's going to break into his house here in Walton, Kentucky, and his wife, Brian Pillman's wife, Melanie, will be there, and they're going to tease that we don't know what's going on, but when Pillman pulls a gun, we lose transmission. You've seen it all in wrestling. Did you know at the time this ain't a good idea?
Yeah, I thought it was too much. I thought it was unbelievable. Pulling a weapon, that you ostensibly to kill someone with. It's a little too far for pro wrestling, in my opinion. So, yeah, I thought it was way overboard. But two of my favorite people endorsed it, Pillman and Austin.
Right.
So what am I going to do? I talked to him about it. I said, I don't think this is going to work because it's totally unbelievable. It's beyond the realm of possibilities. of course, their defense was nobody's ever done it. It's a big deal. Let's give it a shot. Don't be unfair. Blah, blah, blah. But I thought it was just a little bit too much. Vince loved it because it was different. It was sensationalistic, sensationalized storyline, but it was hard to swallow for me because I just thought we're way over the top on this. If they were to roll their eyes, they get bullets back it up, they would kill nobody else. Brian's not going to shoot Steve. So that's where we were with that deal. I thought it was too much.
We actually covered this angle in long form over in the archives. Really encourage you to go check it out. Grilling JR on youtube.com. You wrote this in your book. Brian and I broadcast some shows together while he was on crutches. He was exceptional, and I tried to sell him on the idea of being the next Jesse Ventura. He was smart, understood the business, sports, politics, plus he had a good look and a unique, raspy voice. No one could mistake him for anyone else. He could have had the gig for years, but Brian resisted, hell-bent on being a wrestling star, as painful as it was for him to work. That is a great what if in wrestling, Jim, because I never really thought about him as a modern day Jesse Ventura. But what you wrote in your book, man, you're exactly right. Like here we are now, several months into your WWF contract, and you're still not able to perform, and you just had to have surgery done again. Why not try it and see if we could make a run at that? Why do you think his heart wasn't in it? Did it feel like a defeat to him and he wanted to prove everyone wrong like he had in football, or what's the thinking?
I think that, quite honestly, nothing was going to supplant being a wrestler. He had one goal: in the ring, wrestling. And nothing else is going to matter. Nothing else is going to be acceptable. So I think that's where we were with that deal. We could offer him any role. He could have been commentator, as we said, all these other different roles. He could have been working in the office. There's a lot of stuff Brian could do and do well, but nothing was going to replace his love of being a pro wrestler. That was his bottom line. What Stone Cold would say. So he was, it just, God dang, it's just heartbreaking. I keep thinking more about it. I just think, God dang, this poor bastard. When you got 32 throat operations for your child,
yeah,
you're faced with cancer as a child, and you live through that, it leaves you marked for life. Every time you open your mouth, you know something's up. How can we sound that way? What happened? So he's explained that over and over. But he desperately was needing a break, and the break he got was his ankle.
My goodness. Well, listen, he does eventually enjoy a little bit more success in wrestling here. When he returns, he's going to join the Hart Foundation along with Brett, Owen, Davey, and Jim Neidhart. Of course, he did get his start working with the Hart family, tagging with the Harts, learning how to wrestle from Stu Hart. But he keeps going with this loose cannon gimmick as he's trying to work towards an in-ring return. And he's going to start working some six-mans. And then the epic Canadian Stampede match, which we've split.
One of my favorite, I started interviewing Conrad, but that was one of my favorite nights on the job. Going to Calgary, I remember going on the fairgrounds there, Stampede, have a great big old turkey leg the size of my arm, and then calling the matches. Never really seen a more natural, organic, passionate arena full of people ever. Even to this day, the building was, manageable. It was small compared to stadium shows, but it was packed. And boy, those fans, they were there to see the Hart family get their just due and to shut the mouth of some of these loudmouth Americans, namely Stone Cold.
I just love this match. Go out of your way to see it. It's Austin, Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and the Legion of Doom in a 10-man tag against the Hart Foundation. And if you watch it back because of our recommendation, take a look at Brian's face when he comes through the curtain. He gets a hero's welcome, and my man is grinning ear to ear. It's got to be one of the last really happy moments we got to see with him on camera.
Agreed.
His next feud is largely going to be over Marlena, and it's going to be a feud with Goldust. And boy, when I think about Marlena, I think, Well, they probably didn't need Blue Chew back then. But hey, that was 25 years ago. Maybe we all need a little Blue Chew these days. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed at BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. So you can take them anytime, day or night. So plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is so simple. You'll sign up at BlueChew.com. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all done online. Now, that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. But there won't be anything discreet about your package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And boy, do we have a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code JR will help you get your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
Great partners for us. Been with us a long time. Many of our friends used it, including you and me.
Absolutely.
And I believe in it. If nothing else, and I know this is not the only reason, it gives you confidence that you're going to perform at the level you want to perform at. And my English teacher be rolling over her grave, ended a sentence with a preposition. But it's just amazing. So it works. Price, Conrad, how do you beat the price?
How do you beat free? Come on.
Yeah, man, it's free for me. So give it a shot, folks. There's never been a better time. Your significant other will appreciate it.
Yes.
You will appreciate it because you'll have the confidence that you're going off to this, I don't want to say a war, this or say competition. Any of those things would apply, quite frankly, but it works. And right now, you can try it for nothing. $5 shipping and handling. Are you kidding? Great.
Hard to beat. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. That's easy to do. It's BlueChew.com. The promo code JR. Bam. It's on your way for free. Just pay the $5 shipping. So listen, the Pillman angle with Gold Dust is interesting because I guess there was a backstory, real life relationship between them. And we like when we can take a real life circumstance and add a little story to it and put it on TV. But the stakes at SummerSlam are high for the entire Hart Foundation. You know, if you lose, you got to kiss my ass. Well, if you lose, you got to eat dog food. Well, if you lose, you can never wrestle in the United States. Well, Brian Pillman's stakes are, he loses, he's got to wear a dress for a month. And he does. Eventually, even though he's wearing the dress, and that's fun, I'm sure he's having fun with that. Pillman's going to defeat Goldust in a rematch, and now he's going to get Marlena for 30 days. And that's where we start to see the loose cannon Triple X Files. In this era, you know, the X Files was a big TV show on Fox, but we're going to shoot it with a camcorder in a hotel room, and you can just sort of use the rumor and innuendo there. Marlena and Brian. Was Brian comfortable with this? Was Marlena comfortable with this?
They seem to be. This is very, he's sensitive about angles like that, in as much as that the parties involved have to be comfortable with the creative. And preferably, they'll contribute to the creative. If you want Brian to contribute to creative, all you got to do is tell them what you need. You'll have 10 ideas for you in a few minutes. So I think everybody's cool with it. It's just a kind of a fun mid-card storyline. That might not have been Brian's liking. I don't know. But I thought he and Marlena pulled it off, and Goldust. They all pulled it off. They did a good job with their characters and made it work.
We should remind everybody, you know, this story you told earlier about Brian being in no condition to perform and you sending a tester to go check him out. That happened in this era during this Goldust Marlena love triangle storyline. And you wrote in your book when he made that call and he was upset with you that he was saying, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not taking any drugs. And you wrote, regrettably, his urine didn't back up his words. So when you get the drug test results, and you kind of probably know just based on all the symptoms and what all the guys have witnessed, you kind of probably have an idea of what to expect. Did you have in your mind, all right, how are we going to handle this? Do you make those calls, or does Vince make those calls?
Well, Vince makes the final. He'll ask me for what I believe we should do. He knew I was very close to the subjects. But we're going to have to do something. We can't just let it go and say, well, you've been a bad boy, we're going to slap your wrist. And all those drug-like issues were topical. And it was not good timing for Brian.
It's sad, but it's written in the Observer that when you ordered that drug test, that was just 5 weeks before he lost his life. And Dave, of course, was a family friend of the Pillmans. He had been in touch with Melanie, and she was saying that she too was concerned about the level of consumption he had with prescription drugs. And he had refused your advances and requests to go to treatment and to get help. And this is really wreaking havoc, not only on his professional career, but his personal life and his home life. And Melody would even tell Dave that he often wore a shirt that says rehab was for quitters. And eventually, it's in the Observer, Brian requested a release from the WWF, feeling he could go back to WCW and slide into the final slot in the Four Horsemen. His personal situation was rocky for a short period of time, which included him violating a restraining order and Melanie filing for a divorce. After a brief separation, he had returned home. He was pulled from the October 3rd house show in Winnipeg and from the Friday night house shows for the next few weeks because of a court-ordered anger management class that he had to take for violating the restraining order. He had to go to these classes for 4 straight Saturday mornings. He's back on the road after the classes for the matches in St. Paul. And unfortunately, that would be his last match of his career against Goldust.
He never woke up. He never woke up. And that was the one thing about when Jack Lenz and I were on the phone from where it was, out of Portland, somewhere in the Northwest. That was the issue there. He fell asleep in the locker room and he couldn't get dressed.
Wow.
It was sad, really, really sad, because there you knew that, if cancer didn't kill you, it looks like this down injury and how you doctor yourself, how you medicate yourself would. And it did, unfortunately. It's just, his body just gave out on it. And the prescription meds they're tough, man. These doctors in that era, especially, you could get about as much as whatever you needed, but you still can't make somebody follow the directions on the bottle and not take 2 every 6 hours. Well, why don't I just take 6 every 2 hours? And maybe I'll be better. Maybe that will cure me. There was nothing we could do. Look, the company spent thousands of dollars on surgeries for Brian. Thousands of dollars. Those are major surgeries, rebuilding bones, reassembling your ankle, all that stuff, and getting past the fusion. It just was a horrible situation for him to be in. And at some points, I don't know. I think his attitude led to contributing to his death. I think he got so frustrated. He was heartbroken. His will to beat this seemed to lessen simply because he realized, as only he could, just how badly he was hurting and the limitations that this injury had put on his career.
It's pretty amazing to me that I didn't know at the time, and I don't think it was widely reported at the time, that he had asked for a release, thinking he could go to WCW and slide in and be one of the Horsemen. Are you the guy he asked for the release? Do you remember that bit?
Yeah. And I think he did. And I kept wanting to make him happy. Right. He needed a win. He needed a win, Conrad. He needed something where he could feel good about himself. And if that was going to do it, fine, because it was obvious that his wrestling days were essentially over. The little gimmick things with Marlena and Gold Dust. That's one deal. But bottom line is, we had no problem giving him a release because we knew that he was limited on what he could do.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's no doubt with Athletic Greens, AG1 is the real deal. Jim and I start every single day with it. We think you should too. It's a special blend of high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, like 75 of them. And combined, man, it's going to help support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, all of the things. Think of it as your all-in-one nutritional insurance. It's also lifestyle friendly. Whether you're trying to do keto or paleo, or maybe you're vegan, or maybe you're dairy free or gluten free. Well, AG1 has less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It's going to support better sleep quality and better recovery, better mental clarity and alertness. We just love it. And I think you will too. Don't just take our word for it though. These folks have over 7,000 5-star reviews.
That's incredible. I'm going to say it right here, right now. Just take the time for 7,000 people to make these amazing reviews and stop the process of their day to chime in is incredible.
Yes.
That speaks so much volume of how good this product is and how well it works without fail for everybody.
You're going to love it. Check it out. We want you to try it. Reclaim your health. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Good job, Connie. It's a great product, folks. It really works. It's so easy to take. And you're going to wonder within a few days that you're feeling so much better. You're going to be like me, the eternal pessimist, and say, either 1, why didn't I think of that? I could have been making this money. Or 2, why didn't I start it earlier? And 2 is normally the logical one. Why didn't I start it earlier? So we're giving you a heads up. We got a great offer here to save you some money. The product works. It's going to improve your health. If it improves your health, one of the things it's going to do is improve your sleep. And that's, we're big sleep people here on this show. So Athletic Greens, head there, try it, and I think you'll agree it changes your life.
Fantastic product. Can't recommend it enough. His final televised match aired on October 4th, 1997. It's Shotgun Saturday Night. He would defeat the Patriot by DQ thanks to some interference by Goldust. And of course, as we all know, we found out that he passed away on the Bad Blood pay-per-view. I'll never forget watching In Your House Bad Blood, and it's going to be the debut of Kane, and it's going to be the first ever Hell in a Cell, and just an incredible match with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. But we started with just the most tragic news of all when we're told that Brian Pillman has passed away. And of course, he was found dead in his hotel room in Bloomington, Minnesota, where he had wrestled the previous night. His last opponent, of course, was Goldust. How do you guys find out that Brian's gone?
I can't remember. Well, the boys, that was a kind of team hotel, so everybody was staying. So the word gets out, telephone, telegraph, telerescue, and let it roll. So somebody from one of the boys, I don't remember who, maybe one of the agents, I kind of want to thank you. It was one of the agents that gave us that news. And it might have been Lance, it might have been Jack, because all the talent stayed in the same place, which is smart in my view. You know where you find everybody, at least where you hope you can find everybody. So I was, I think Jack or an agent, somebody that was at the hotel when they found Brian, got the word back to us. I think we were in St. Louis. I don't remember if I remember correctly when we found out. It put a damper on the whole day. For me, it broke my heart. And maybe I shouldn't have been that close to talent, but I think you do a good job managing your talent. You're going to get close to them, or you should, or at least you should try. And I was gobsmacked. It's just horrible. This horrible.
How do you change or influence the mood and the tone and tenor in a locker room? I mean, we always make sports analogies here on this program, and now a teammate, he's gone. Not like he got traded, not like he's got contract issues, not like he's dinged up. We'll see him next week.
Yeah.
Hey, he's gone, and y'all gonna have a good show. That's tough, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it wasn't the first time we tried to overcome tragedy and death. I don't remember what year it was that old Hart fell in Kansas City, 99, I think.
Yeah. 2 years later.
Yeah. So we're dealing with these issues all along. It's just a part of the management process when you got a bunch of testosterone filled wrestlers who believe they're invincible. And Brian believed he was invincible. But as far as getting him a release, we were going to give him a release.
Right.
Because he couldn't do what he wanted to do. He couldn't perform. And so we're running out of things to do with Brian. And then you look on the sheet, the folder that has their history in it, and you see all these surgeries.
Right.
Then you find out what these surgeries cost, Conrad. It was in the 6-figure plus range. So it was hard to justify keeping a guy who had had that many surgeries and now wanted to leave. He didn't leave because he couldn't do this or couldn't do that. He wanted to wrestle in the story. And we knew that wasn't possible. So if it come to the eventuality of giving him a release, there'd be no problem.
We should at least mention the night after this pay-per-view, we do a live feed interview with Vince McMahon talking to now Brian's widow, Melanie. And this was heavily criticized, especially with the benefit of hindsight. Meltzer would say, under the emotional state that everyone was under, it would be cruel and heartless to be critical of the segment. And I think in hindsight, if you had it to do over again, maybe we wouldn't have done that. But there's not really a playbook on this sort of thing, is there, Jim?
No, you got to go with your guts and your instincts and your heart.
Yeah.
Things you don't, it's not often said in a problem solving environment within pro wrestling. I mean, to be honest with you, Conrad, when Brian died, I'm sure there are a lot of talents on the roster that looked at this as an opportunity for them to move up. Brian's no longer in the picture. So that's a key role that's open for somebody who's going to step up and take it. That may sound cold, cruel, and callous, but it was it's the way it was. It's just, it was even worse in the territory days when guys only got paid for what tickets they sold. Now they had a chance to get in the card in a bigger way, sell more tickets, therefore make more money. Bottom line of this whole proposition. So it was hard. It was hard, Connie. And what's hard is so frustrating because I wanted to help him so badly, like you do all your talents. But I had a different little relationship with Brian. I wanted to help him, but there were times in this endeavor, Connie, I didn't know what to do.
Right?
How do you, like you said, there's no playbook. No playbook on this damn thing. So it was hard. It's heartbreaking for me. Still it is to some degree. I still think about it and say, what if I did this? Or could I have done that? That type of situation. But there was no solution. If there had been one, God Almighty, God only knows I looked, tried, talked to doctors, talked to psychologists. We just wanted to do everything I could to help Brian. And at some point, when you get in these situations, Connie, the talent's got to want to do something too to help themselves. And Brian was still angry and defiant and thought he could pull this thing off. And he didn't want to hear the options. Your options are limited. Here's what we want you to be. And he didn't want to be what we wanted to be.
Let's read an excerpt from your book. Vince and I flew to Cincinnati to see his family as we both wanted to pay our respects. We visited his wake which was a little more than your typical memorial service with stories and memories of Brian being shared. They had the casket open, and it hurt me deeply to see Brian lying there. The part I found the hardest about running the talent department was keeping a distance from the wrestlers. I got too close to some of the guys, and when tragedy struck, it was like losing a family member. Brian Pillman had been like a little brother to me, a mischievous kid. And despite his image as a wild man, Brian was not using drugs, in my opinion, for recreational purposes. He was taking the medication to help him heal from that awful accident, but it was medication that was still against company policy. I just can't imagine, man. I'm glad you wrote about that in your book, and you shared and were open and honest and transparent about it. And I can't help but think, what if we had started Brian Pillman in the NWA under Paul Heyman and him tagging with Dennis Condrey? And what if they had really doubled down on his success when he had the highest rated match against Ric Flair on TV? Why didn't we double down then? And what if he wouldn't have been in that wreck? I mean, Brian could have been a major part of 1998. You think about what the Attitude Era was going to be, and his former best friend and former tag team partner was going to win the world title. You just know those guys could have had a hell of a series of pay-per-views. That could have been a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania main event just then. The story was already there. And I'm curious, not that it really matters, but in wrestling's sake, if he was frustrated here a little bit and was thinking about asking for a release, and just 1 month after he passed as the Montreal Screwjob, would he have went to WCW, or would that have created opportunity here? And we'll never know the answers to those things, but we do know that he left a legacy that we can still enjoy with AEW now. I think we both think a lot of Brian Jr. in AEW. And, of course, you got to spend, and here's the sad tragedy of it all, because Brian was so young, you got to spend a lot more time with Brian than Brian Jr. did with his own dad. And it's a cautionary tale, man, for, how fragile life can be.
Oh, absolutely. I get emotional thinking about it. It's just very few times on this show. The Red Ass JR will pop out every now and then.
Yes.
We both laugh about.
Yeah.
But golly, this show today's hard, because I just keep remembering. I feel things. I sense things. I sense that, he's kind of looking over my shoulder, monitoring what I'm saying. But I love the little guy. You couldn't help. His enthusiasm, Conrad, was infectious.
Yeah.
It really was. He just, unfortunately, every story does not have a happy ending. And our tomorrows are never, ever guaranteed. And we found that out. That struck close to home on this situation, especially. I love the little guy. He and Austin are probably my two closest, or I got a little too close, maybe. Tried not to let it affect my decision making. And it also, my relationship with Brian, I think, helped me establish a even stronger relationship with Steve. So Steve and Brian are like brothers. And when Steve saw me trying to help Brian in every way I could, Steve would get frustrated with Brian because Brian was hard-headed, stubborn. So it was the most challenging time of my managerial career was trying to decipher what the hell I could do to help this kid and help the company. I didn't have the answer.
FITE Plus is the ultimate digital platform for live sports and entertainment, and they're now offering a free 7-day trial at tryfite.com. FITE Plus is packed with a premium live event schedule, over 1,000 hours of live action every year, and a library of more than 4,000 hours on demand, plus exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. FITE is a great partner of ours. They support us, so let's support them. Give that free 7-day trial a shot, and you'll be a member for life. That's tryfite.com. tryfite.com.
Well, it's fun to think about what if. We got a lot of questions to that regard. Let's answer a few here. Aaron, 1988, wants to know if Pillman did not have that horrific car accident and had come to WWE fully healthy, does JR think that he would have had the potential to be a credible WWF champion?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. especially as the heel. Smaller, feisty, very beatable. And anytime that was one of Flair's calling cards all those years.
Yeah.
He was seemingly beatable. But Brian was the same thing. A controversial wrestling heel, and would have been a great champ.
Let's talk about Chefacon. He wants to know, where was the Goldust feud headed? The rumor was that Terry Runnels was going to turn on Dustin. Did you have seen that, Creative?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the talk of make her a heel for Brian. But again, Brian's got to pull it off, and he couldn't. I don't know why we kept booking this stuff. We know that it doesn't have a happy ending. He can't do it. But out of respect to him and our love of him, we were continuing to try to find ways to utilize his skill set. And we saw as time went on, those opportunities became less and less.
Let's do one last one. Joey wants to know, do you think he would have been able to be as big as Austin had he not passed? I don't know about that, but he certainly could have been up there as an opponent for Austin, right?
Oh, yeah. Austin, they would have willed their way to great matches. There would have been no match on the card that those two, Steve and Brian, would not have thought they could top. That's the competitive athletes. They come from the locker room. They're used to competing for a spot on the team. And I have no doubt Steve and Brian would have made some magic if Brian was healthy. God only knows how well that would have gone and how much money they would have drawn, because they had it. They had the it factor that you can't take your eyes off of. And their promos would have been money. The matches would have been physical and athletic. So, but we didn't get a chance to experience all that, unfortunately.
Well, you are going to get to experience a great pay-per-view this weekend. Double or Nothing is going to be live on Sunday night. Jim Ross is going to be there. You don't want to miss the voice of wrestling there. Or next weekend on Sunday, June 4th, JR is going to be doing a virtual signing with KNS WrestleFest. It's facebook.com/KS WrestleFest. They'll have photos, AEW figures, trading cards. My man's even got barbecue sauce that you could have autographed. August 4th, you'll be able to see Jim in Charlotte. He'll be at the Gathering. It's a who's who. You got Tully Blanchard and Doink and Dink and Gerald Briscoe and Greg Gagne and JJ Dillon and Abdullah the Butcher and Kevin Nash and Kurt Angle. My goodness. tmartinpromotions.com is where you can get all your info. And just a few weeks back, Jim, we did a little career retrospective on Mid-South and got people talking. And if you can't get enough of the old school, we've got some bonus episodes for you right now over at adfreeshows.com, where we're watching some old UWF featuring legendary names like Magnum TA, Dr. Death, Ted DiBiase, One Man Gang, and more. It's all available for you now at adfreeshows.com. I want to mention, if your business targets men 25 to 54 years old, no better place to advertise than right here on Grilling JR. You hear some of the same ads for the same companies week in, week out. Why is that? Well, because it really works. Go right now to advertisewithjr.com to find out more about advertising here on Grilling JR. Love to have your social interaction. If you've got a question for Jim, you can ask it right now at JR Grilling on Twitter and Instagram. It's Grilling JR over on Facebook. JR is very active on Twitter as well. It's at JR's BBQ. I am at Hey, it's Conrad. And of course, you can check out our shows on YouTube at Grilling JR on YouTube.com. We've got some brand new merch over at grillingjrtees.com, but the place to find the really good stuff, the stuff I enjoy and have for years and years, is jrsbbq.com. Something for everybody. Jim, what's shaking and baking over at jrsbbq.com these days?
I got a huge shipment of action figures, and I signed them all while I was in Oklahoma my last trip last week. So, the action I signed, I was shocked at how many action figures I signed at my signing this past weekend. Unbelievable. I've never had seen or experienced a reception like that. So if you want a new, great packaging action figure, we got it. They're in stock. And the same way, I think everything else is in stock and ready to ship. So jrsbbq.com. We don't close. We ship every day. We're going to do our best to take care of you. So we'd appreciate any consideration to visit our site, see if there's something on there you like. Let's not forget, Father's Day is around the corner. And I know most daddies like things to eat.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's great. So, and of course, we got plenty of Conrad's favorite all-purpose seasoning.
It's the best.
Yeah, we're good. So this is good. But for Father's Day, let's make this Father's Day special. Get something for the father in your life that, they're not about to forget. It's a gift for dad. It's another tie. It's another pair of socks.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you said that, because if you get dad socks or ties, he can't enjoy that with you. Here's a little pro tip. If you get him some sauce from jrsbbq.com, not only is he going to use it, when he does, he's going to call you over and make you some too, and y'all get time with dad. And that's what you really all need, is more time with dad. And barbecue becomes a family thing, and it should be a part of your family. So check out JR's family recipe and enjoy it with your own family at jrsbbq.com. And let me recommend, while you're there picking up the sauce for dad, go ahead and get you a heaping helping of that all-purpose seasoning. I tell my wife to be liberal with it. You coat that stuff on some chicken, woo, the best chicken you ever had. jrsbbq.com. Next week, Jim, we're going to be talking about a fun pay-per-view, King of the Ring 1993. This is as old school gets. It's your second pay-per-view at the company. Hulk Hogan is the champion, but he's going to be finishing up here. We're going to get the behind the scenes on all of that. Bret Hart becoming the King of the Ring, Jerry Lawler making a statement, Yokozuna becoming the man, and so much more. I'm excited to talk about the 30-year anniversary of King of the Ring, and that's on deck, man.
Yeah, it's a fun show, no doubt about it. It was my second pay-per-view, as you mentioned, after WrestleMania 9. But it was my run as in the play-by-play chair would be relinquished back to the boss after that show. So it was an interesting show, to say the least. So, yeah, it's really a fun one to talk about next week. A lot of great memories, a lot of really, really strong talent on that event. They were at the top of their game. So we'll get into all of that next week right here on Grilling JR.
We'll see you next week. But along the way, if you're in the area, go see Double or Nothing. I'm telling you, folks, it's going to be a sleeper pay-per-view. AEW delivers every single time out on pay-per-view. This will be no different. It's going to be the show that everybody's talking about come Monday. Don't be the goof who's just trying to keep up online. It's AEWTIX.com, or order it on pay-per-view. I'm getting it on Bleacher Report. I've got an Apple TV on my rig here. I got that app. Bam, 2 clicks, and I'm in. You'll keep up with the voice of wrestling and some of the best wrestling action all weekend. Jim, the Saudi show. I'm always curious what they're going to do with these. It feels like we're getting a new big gold belt that's going to be awarded. AJ Styles and Seth Rollins are going to be competing for that. You got a prediction?
Not really. I think Seth Rollins would be my guess. So, but either one of those guys would make a great champion. And the thing is going to happen is that, much like our AEW pay-per-view on Sunday, the talents in the ring are going to get it on, and they're going to deliver. And I love when talents want to go out and deliver. Everybody that's wrestling this weekend is going to want to outdo their peers.
Yes.
So it's an interesting comparison of how this show rate to last night's show, or how this show rate to how's it going to pair up to the Sunday show.
Yes.
AEW is doing. So competition is great. And I think our talent's going to rise to the occasion at AEW. I'm proud of them. I'm proud to be a part of the organization. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it as it is intended for you to do. So it's going to be a big weekend. Can't wait.
It is going to be a big weekend. And here's what I know. There's going to be a lot of discussion about who had the better show and who had the best match and who won. The real winners this weekend are the wrestling fans. Check out the Saudi show on Saturday. It's free on Peacock, but reach into your pocket. You won't regret it. These shows always deliver. AEW on pay-per-view is a home run, time in, time out. AEWTIX.com. Raphael Morphy's got you hooked up there. And of course you can join us on pay-per-view as well. So Jim, I appreciate the time. I hope we did justice, paying homage and tribute to somebody you thought a lot of, and I think a lot of his son. And I can't wait to talk about King of the Ring next week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, Connie. I appreciate you, your compassion. I got very emotional earlier, and I didn't cry, but I wanted to. It's just a special show. Maybe this is one show where you go back and listen to it again and hear my thoughts. The most challenging time of my professional life, even more challenging than Bell's palsy.
Wow.
I figured I could come back to Bell's palsy if I just tried hard enough, but I couldn't make Brian come back.
Wow.
I felt helpless there. So anyway, fun show. I'm glad we talked about my old friend. I wish he had a different ending to his story, to his angle, but we love him, still love him. So, but thank you, Conrad. And thanks to everybody out there listening. We appreciate you guys a lot. Really do.
Thanks for tuning in to Grilling JR. We'll admit, JR and I are not the most technical dudes, so it sounded a little different this week. It'll sound like it used to again next week, but hopefully the content made up for it. Tune in for a big weekend this weekend. We'll see you guys next week right here on Grilling JR.
So long, everybody. Thanks a lot for everything.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson with SaveWithConrad.com. You've heard me bragging on the podcast for years about helping people save money on their current house, but did you know that I can help you with your next house as well? That's right, we can get you into your next house with zero down. No money down loan programs are still available, and I know it sounds too good to be true, but we can do it for you. And by the way, home ownership is more affordable than you might think. We routinely turn renters into homeowners, and we hear back that their new house payment is more affordable than what they were paying in rent. Why would you keep doing that? Stop throwing your money away, paying for someone else's mortgage, and start building wealth for your family. And let my family help at SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit to do this. We can improve credit scores down to the 500s, and it's worth mentioning, we never say no. We say not yet, but here's how. You need a game plan to buy a house, and that's where we come in at SaveWithConrad.com. We'll ask you, what down payment do you want to make? And zero is an acceptable answer. And what monthly payment do you want? And then it's time to go shopping. Find out how easy it is and how affordable it is to become a homeowner at SaveWithConrad.com.